Good morning, everyone. Welcome to United We Stand, where justice, love, and freedom prevail, the annual commemoration event for Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. service. Some of us have just feasted on a wonderful breakfast, and hopefully those of you who are just now joining us have full stomachs, full hearts, and clear minds, and are ready to engage in community with us today. In case you're just now joining us, restrooms are right outside the theater. And for those of you who missed it, my name is Isaac. I'm a junior at Squalicum High School, and I'm ecstatic to be one of your MCs for the community event today.
Hi, my name is Balin, and I'm a fifth grader in Bellingham Public Schools. This event is brought to you by the Community Consortium for Cultural Recognition. Organizing institutes include Western Washington University, Bellingham Public Schools, the City of Bellingham, Bellingham Technical College, Whatcom Community College, Northwest Indian College, Peace Health, Bellingham Public Library, and Whatcom County Health and Community Services. Please join me in thanking everyone who has been a really important part of making today possible. We also recognize that many leaders in our community are here today. To our education, city, and community leaders in the room, please stand if you are able so that we can appreciate you.
To help us get centered in this space and bring our community together, we will begin with our land and labor acknowledgements, followed by the singing of the Black National Anthem. Now, it is imperative for us to take some time as a community to acknowledge the histories of the land and the labor given to this land in order for us to be here today. Now, I would like to begin by acknowledging that we gather today on the ancestral homelands of the Coast Salish peoples who have lived in the Salish Sea Basin throughout the San Juan Islands and the North Cascades watersheds from time immemorial. Now, please join me in expressing our deepest respect and gratitude for our indigenous neighbors, the Lummi Nation and the Nooksack tribe, for their enduring care and protection of our shared lands and waterways. Yeah. The land which touches the shared waters of all tribes and bands within the Squamish, Tulalip, and Muckleshoot nations. Now, it is easy for us to take granted the access and freedoms that we have today. So I would like for us to also acknowledge the unpaid caregiving, labor, and forced sacrifices that without, we would be unable to be here today. We recognize our debt to exploited and enslaved peoples, past and present, whose labor was and continues to be stolen through unjust practices. It is imperative to acknowledge that our country, the United States of America, was built on the involuntary labor of enslaved peoples and continues to benefit from their descendants as well as immigrant labor, including voluntary, involuntary, trafficked, and documented peoples. Thank you. We are indebted to their labor and their unwilling sacrifices, and we must acknowledge the tremors of that violence throughout generations and the resulting impact that is still felt and witnessed today in 2025. However, I want to challenge you all, each of you guys here today, to go a step beyond just acknowledgement. I challenge you all to be an active participant in empowering the communities for which we have failed to embrace and uplift as a nation. While land and labor acknowledgements are formally designated to collectively express gratitude, they are also very fleeting, right? They come and go. So I encourage you all today to critically interrogate our history as a nation, work with one another to repair harm, eradicate systems of oppression, and honor, protect, and sustain this land and make space for joyful celebrations of the rich heritage and culture of these communities. Thank you. And not only today, but every single day from here on out. So this event is an invitation to begin this very journey. Now, please help me welcome our WW Voice student, Sintayu Bodenman. Sintayu will be performing the Black National Anthem, Lift Every Voice and Sing, which was written by James Weldon Johnson and arranged by John Rosamond Johnson. The lyrics will be available on the screen, so please feel free to stand if you're able and feel free to sing along. Thank you.
Lift every voice and sing to the Lord in heaven. Ring with the harmonies of liberty. Let our rejoicing arise high as the listening skies. Let it resound loud as the rolling sea. Sing a song full of the faith that the dark past has taught us. Sing a song full of the hope that the present has brought us, facing the rising sun of a new day begun. Let us march on till victory is won.
Thank you, Ermias and Sintayu, for helping to center us in this moment of community. Like all of you, many of our volunteers and speakers are staff and students honoring the call to action by the late Congressman John Lewis. We recognize the MLK holiday as a day on, not a day off, to commemorate the importance of Dr. King's legacy.
Now, as we shift our focus, we are excited to welcome up an intergenerational panel that will engage in dialogue around advocacy, engagement, and community restoration. This panel is comprised of Miriam Karamoko, Ibiduni Ojitu, I'm sorry, Bryson Vereen, Shayra Lane, and Ian Garsonet. Our panelists came from different generations, different experiences, and different backgrounds, yet their light, laughter, and leadership brings them together in shared narrative about uniting our community. Monitoring our panel is Dr. William Jackson. As an educational leader and relationship builder, Dr. Jackson centers his why on justice, equity, access, and radical love. Dr. Jackson values instructional leadership and leadership development. Dr. Jackson has earned the 2024 Washington State Secondary Principal of the Year Award for his services and leadership as former principal of Nathan Hale High School. And in 2023, he earned the Foster Award for Educational Excellency from Allies for Education for centering justice, access, inclusion, and equity as a school leader.
Please join us in welcoming our moderator and panelists for today's conversation.
Good morning, everyone. How's everyone doing? Good. That felt good. All right, so we'll get situated here. And as we get situated, we have an amazing group of folks here to share a little bit of their story and as well as share some fruit and some gems with us today. But I think one of the most valuable things about these type of panels, since we have so many folks to share, is for them to at least tap the mic real quick for you to hear their voice and for them to hear their own voice. So for everyone here, again, I just say share your name and what's one word that comes to your mind today.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Bryson Farine, and
What comes to your mind today?
what comes to my mind today is passion. Like, everyone's passionate to be here, I feel like. So that's the word for me.
My name's Ian Garcinet. The word that comes in mind for me today is community.
Hi everyone, Miriam Karamoko, or Miriam Karamoy, my native language. The word that comes to mind to me today is legacy.
Hi everyone, my name is Sharia Lane, and the word that comes to mind for me today is reverence when I think about the leaders that we're celebrating.
Hello, everybody. My name is Ibidunio Jikitu. You did fine. And the word that comes to mind today is uncomfortable. And I'm not uncomfortable, but Dr. King made people uncomfortable. And that's important.
Okay, that's perfect. Thank you. Let's just start with Dr. King, and then we'll go into, there's folks here from the area. There's folks here that went to Western. There's folks that are in Bellingham School District. There's some intersectional experiences, folks that are from the Lummi tribe as well. And there's just so much richness. So let's just start. Let's hear about, since we heard a little bit of, I'll throw in my word is agitator. Dr. King was an agitator, and let's hear about what his legacy means to you. And we'll start over in the back with Ibiduni.
Ibiduni. It's phonetic in every language but English. So, I moved here. I'm a proud Bellingham High alum. Last graduating class before they tore it down and turned it into this. It's great. I just don't know where anything is. And I also graduated from Western. We moved here when I was 16 from Lincoln, Nebraska. And I would say, demographically speaking, Lincoln is way more diverse than Western, than here. But this is a much easier place to grow up in. When it comes to Dr. King and his legacy, it's been sanitized quite a bit. He wasn't Mickey Mouse. People love to talk about kindness, or they love to talk about peace and love and all of these things. If you look at the action shots of Dr. King, it's always very powerful. Yeah, there are pictures of him like hugging people and whatnot, but he's always, always, always looking very powerful. What he did was shine a light on the uncomfortableness, and he helped, the movement made it unacceptable. And unfortunately, we are in a society now where people would much rather be comfortable at Thanksgiving and Christmas instead of pushing the people in their lives, the people that they have access to, that frankly we don't have access to, and telling them that, no, that's unacceptable. You're not allowed in my life. The two things that work in America are economic and social consequences. And people have allowed the social consequences to not happen anymore. Dr. King wasn't about, I don't think, peace. I think Dr. King was very much about equity. It is so much easier to be nice than it is to be kind. I don't have to be nice to you. I do have to be kind. I don't tolerate people, I tolerate olives on my pizza. You know what I mean? And I think it's very, very important, especially the younglings in the audience, to understand that if you are comfortable, then something's probably wrong. Because comfort comes with complacency. And you need to look around and see who isn't being served. And if you are with a group of people that are comfortable and you're not comfortable, then you're the one that's not being served. Make it uncomfortable, make it weird.
Thank you. Yeah. And let's stay in the space of a little bit of agitation, and let's shift it a little bit. I had an opportunity to connect with Shariah right before. And one thing she said was, but let's get real. And so, okay, let's get real. As a Black woman and a Lummi tribal member, let's talk that conversation and how not only do we need to continue to build solidarities, but also we need to understand what is actually existing in the day-to-day walk. And what would you like to share to our folks in the audience that could be of value that they hear from you?
Thank you. So, yeah, my name's Shariah.
Shariah, I'm sorry.
It's okay.
Yeah.
I am a Lummi tribal member, grew up out on the Lummi reservation, went to tribal school most of my life, and that's just an interesting experience, right? A lot of intersections, walking in different worlds, and learning how to navigate that. One of the jobs I had the opportunity to do in college when I was at UW in Seattle was working with an organization called Sankofa Impact. And it was something that really drew me in because the work that they did was took interracial, intergenerational groups down to the South and physically walked through the places of the civil rights movement. We got to meet people who were on the front lines, people that you may have never heard of, who have just, and share that oral history. People who have these stories and these experiences. And that was so important to me because I knew that this was a closing window of people that we have access to, who are, elders today. So getting to hear from and learn from them firsthand was just a really incredible experience. But one of the key messages and the key thing that kept coming up is this was everyday people doing everyday things. While we love and respect Dr. King, Malcolm X, these well-known figures and leaders, the lifeblood of the movement happened with everyday people who took everyday actions to do something different, to change the dynamics of their place and their community. So when I think about our community and I look around at our community here in Bellingham and Whatcom County, it is changing. My dad came up here for the Juneteenth event last year and could have cried. He said this has changed so much since he was here back in the day. To see Black people here having space and community and being able to celebrate with one another. And we still have a long ways to go because something happened here just a few months ago that was totally unacceptable, to a young Black student in our community. And when I think about Indigenous people, Native people, our relatives, our neighbors, and the history of Bellingham and its tribes. If you're from here, you may know what I'm talking about, but I would come back here and kind of hear different narratives about Native people and the reservation that I'm sure if you're from here, you've heard some of these narratives as well. you know. And this is old stuff, this is deep-rooted stuff, but this is our stuff, you know. So that's, when I was talking about let's get real, that's one of the best things that we can do, is bring this work as local as we can possibly get it. You know, look at our unique community, our unique challenges, our unique history, and do something about it in our everyday lives. So, you know, that's where the most power lies, is just the ordinary, you know, the mundane, the day-to-day kind of stuff of how we're showing up in relationship with other people. And while I love events like this, I love opportunities to reflect on Dr. King and the movement, I love opportunities to get together and sort of lay out our shared values. But then the real power in that lies in how do we bring that into our everyday lives. That's where we can start to break out of the segregation of our communities. That's where we can start to see the people who have continually told us that they feel invisible. That's where we can start to do just the little things that make all the difference in the world, how we show up in our community together. So, you know, when I talk about getting real, I talk about bringing it home, you know, and being honest with ourselves and each other about the things that have been happening here and how we can, you know, make those changes on a small scale, on a day-to-day, to do something different.
Thank you. And I'm going to keep us moving this way, and I'll ask this similar to both Miriam and to Ian, and this moves us into a space of contention right now, and this is why these conversations are great. And again, agitation right now. Immigration is one thing that is under deep attack, and as you might not know, but you might know, if the many folks who are immigrants or who have migrated to America, the folks that are the most discriminated against are Black and brown immigrants to America. So to both Miriam and Ian, center the story however you want, or center your response however you like. Would you like to speak to this or speak to how this relates to Dr. King's legacy?
Okay, yeah, so I immigrated to Tacoma when I was 14. And if you know me, you know I love Tacoma so much. But prior to that, I was born and raised in Côte d'Ivoire, West Africa, called the Ivory Coast. And very early on, growing up in a very homogenous place, you'd think this is amazing, this is great. It was very obvious that something just felt wrong. I had many experiences, both overtly, covertly, and also pretty borderline violent experiences where I felt like I was not supposed to be here, in the sense that I'm not welcomed here in my own country of origin. That's for a lot of reasons. If you know historically, the Ivory Coast was colonized by France. And so, you know, being the person that I am, I was really curious about why is that? You know, this doesn't make sense. And, you know, my mom was really focused on protecting us. So she, you know, was like, oh, maybe don't ask so many questions. And my dad was like, go do it, like ask all the questions. And so that kind of fostered this, you know, curiosity in me in questioning things. One of the things that I remember in school, grade school, so this is elementary school, we learned about slavery in the United States. The context in which it was taught is that, you know, all of these people that are your kin were taken and stolen from the land, and then were taken to, we'll say, the United States as a very specific example. The context in which it kind of was further taught is that, didn't we have it so much easier? Because we were only colonized, and we got to stay here and look at all the bad things. So we have it better, so you should be grateful. And I remember one of my teachers saying, this is how they want us to teach it to you. If you know, the school system is made by France, the school system in my country, and so it's the same, the people telling the history in a very specific narrative. That felt off. And so when I moved here, and one of my teachers said, and also my mom had heard that as a Black African person, to not associate with African Americans, I was shocked. How this ties to Dr. King's legacy is he and African leaders recognized, and specifically Ghana, which was the first African country to get its independence.
Miriam, I'm sorry. Could you?
Oh, sorry.
Sorry, I just want to make sure I hear you.
Thank you. It's the first African country to get its independence. He recognized that our struggles were closely tied to white supremacy. And there was a very coveted effort to organize and join forces in a lot of different ways, which was a huge threat to white supremacy in the US, which is why a lot of the movements that brought African Americans doing civil rights movements in the US and African leaders there was a really huge effort to basically break it down, which led to assassinations of great civil rights leaders in the US. So that's how that ties to it. We're taught a very specific narrative in order to perpetuate white supremacy, even when we know it does not serve any of us. And so that's kind of how my story ties into wanting to do this work.
Thank you.
Can you hear me? Okay, great. So my story begins in a small, tiny island called St. Lucia. My story begins in a small, tiny island called St. Lucia. I was born in St. Lucia. It is an independent country. When I tell people that I'm from St. Lucia, it's not something that I tell people too often. As you can hear from my voice, I'm pretty assimilated to the United States. But one of the things that it's not something I share often with people, but for about 9 years in the United States, I was an undocumented person. And being undocumented means that this was during Bush's presidency. So this was post 9/11. You have the war on terror. You have individuals terrorize. You have immigration raids on, and we're looking at something that is going to happen with the next administration, and that scares me for people that come to the United States without documents. And when I moved to the United States, I was 10 years old. My parents just packed me on a plane and were like, "Move in." So it's one of those things. It's like it's a situation where I didn't exactly have a choice, but the reality is that as I looked around, I saw my peers get basic things like driver's licenses. They're able to get things like jobs. And at 18 years old, I ended up dropping out of high school because of the Great Recession. And I was also undocumented at the time. So where does that leave an individual with no documentation, no papers, no hope? And when I look back on my experiences living in Miami is I wouldn't say homogenous place. I'd say Caribbean's pretty almost a little homogenous in that sense. But Miami is different in a sense that you have all these people from Central and Latin America, and the division there is by nationality and less by race. And if I feel as if I would like to take people from Florida, from Miami, especially people, and give me 1 second, let me gather my thoughts. I was really just disappointed recently when I heard the comments of a president disparaging the people of Haiti. Haiti, if you are not aware of this, is the first Black republic in the Americas whose Independence Day is January 1st, if I get the year wrong, 1804, 1803. I'm not good with numbers per se. But in that fact, it's just, again, give me a second to get my thoughts together. In that fact, I think we all need to realize that we all need to be rowing in the same direction, whether we're immigrants from the Caribbean, whether we're immigrants from South America, Latin America, from Africa. Dr. King's legacy of civil rights has been the one that allows immigration from countries in Asia, from Africa, from Latin America. If it wasn't for the civil rights movement, there is a lot of immigrants that would not be in the United States today. And that is the legacy that I see that he leaves behind for somebody like me. At the same time, I'm also concerned about the future, but I believe that if we kept together as a community locally, because we're not going to be able to count on organizations or federal governments to assist us in this role. So that's it.
Thank you. And we have a Squalicum student in the house. Bryson, what's good? How are you doing?
I'm doing good.
Good. All right, so when we were sitting earlier, you shared a little bit about me because I'm always trying to figure out strategies at any point. As an educator, I'm like, okay, because the next question is going to come around, and I'm going to ask, okay, so now what? But this question to you is along those lines. But you also share with me when you were young, your family actually took you down south to identify certain specific areas that are a part of your cultural heritage. First question is, can you share a little bit about what that experience was for you? If you don't remember, or if you do, however, what was the experience? And just open question about community. How do we build community, and what does that look like to you?
I feel like a good way to build community is like having events like this and sharing or educating people about like history and legacy and historic events that actually happened and affected people. And another way to build community is just working together and doing something that you're passionate about and just doing the right thing in general for that community and everything.
Thank you. You're not going to escape that first question, though. So tell us a little bit about that experience, that growing up.
Well, growing up in North Carolina, it was just a good experience. And just before I moved here, what else? I like Martin Luther King is so close to me because he helped out a lot of people in my community before I moved here. And things I did back in the day was I visited the museum where he got assassinated at in Tennessee, and I went to the University of North Carolina Central where my dad went, and I educated kids on Martin Luther King and played games with them, just had a good time just educating people and stuff.
Thank you.
So yeah.
All right, bringing it back to Ibiduni, I have a question because we were sitting in the room together, and you're in the arts, wide range. And this is moving to strategies of solidarity and ideas about how to actually, a word that I use in education, operationalize equity and justice. That might not be a word that's in your world, it might be. But you were sharing about certain things in let's take the Malcolm X, thank you, play and opera that you were a part of. Can you share the nuances and the events that were held and what that could look like to build community?
So, real quick, on the immigration thing, if I'm correct, and I'm pretty sure the numbers still hold, the largest number of undocumented immigrants in this country are not black or brown. They are our friends from the North. But they're not as easy to pick out as the folks that look like us. So there's that, if we wanted to fix that problem.
Hope you got that.
I'm gonna answer your
Do your
question.
thing. Answer it however you want.
So when I did Malcolm X at Seattle Opera did some great things with the community. They had a Black Makers Market that was incredibly, because of course it's the February-March show. And they had it around the holiday season, and it was incredibly successful. They did it again. They had in the lobby of Macaw Hall freestyle rappers. They had some gospel groups. They had African dancers, all kinds of things like that. I will say, doing Malcolm X was great. I had done at Portland Opera the Central Park Five by the same composer a year or two ahead before that. The show that I last did at Seattle Opera, Jubilee, was night and day with those two, because it was the first time I did a show that I didn't have to take anything off afterwards. These stories that we tell are incredibly important, but we are so much more than trauma. We are so much more than trauma. The reason Black Panther and Homecoming and Living Single and Martin are so popular and enduring is because Black joy is some of the most amazing. People keep trying to take it from us, right? Thank you. Jubilee was a show that I did at Seattle Opera, and it was about the Fisk Jubilee Singers. And it was a story I'd never heard, even though my mother, my mom's from Dixie, Georgia, my dad's Nigerian. Mom was like, I had always wanted to be a Fisk Jubilee singer. I had no idea. And I come from, her side of the family is a musical side, right? I had no idea she'd always wanted to be a Fisk Jubilee singer. The Fisk Jubilee Singers, they went on a tour and funded their school building that still stands today. Jubilee Hall was built to withstand bomb attacks. And when you take a tour of Jubilee Hall, they say this is the building that music built, that was sung into existence. Their first school was Confederate Army barracks, because they were formed right after the Civil War. They were met with lynch mobs when they first toured the United States, and they would start singing, and it would calm people down sometimes, but the larger men in the group would get, and the women, folks didn't care. But they also, a lot of the spirituals that we know today, the standard was set by the Fisk Jubilee Singers. This is a story I didn't know. There's so much of our history that we don't know. There are so many of these stories that we need to tell. Do not be convinced that the only thing about you that is important is your trauma. Do not. There is so much more to us as a people. There's so much more to us as a community. There are things that I could say in this room that all of the Black people would laugh hysterically at, and nobody else. Did nobody come to see you, Otis? There's so many things that I could say in this room that all the Black people would laugh at, because we have our own community. And when 12 Years a Slave, very important story to tell. Black Panther, story of a Black and African country that was never colonized. Very important story to tell. Again, people are comfortable looking at the past and saying things are so much different. It's not like that anymore. But we're still getting killed in the streets by the police. It's just codified now. It's much easier now, right? And the way that I feel like we can get through that, you have to forge your own path. We have to create our own art. We have to keep doing what we're doing, because no matter what happens, we're still resilient. It's exhausting to be resilient. I will admit, a lot of times I'll just be in bed watching Netflix. But the more we support each other, the more we come together. Yes, things are going to be hairy for the next couple of years. And the United States is a big machine. It takes a long time to turn around. So we're going to be feeling the repercussions of that for the next 20, 30, 40 years. Shout out to Reagan, still feeling his effects. But we're going to come out of it moisturized and looking amazing and with new friends and with amazing art. And that's what lasts in a society, is our art. I look at a lot of what Dr. King said as poetry. It's so much of it is poetry. If you go to the, we call it the Blacksonian, the National Museum of African American History and Art, all of the quotes, I've been like 3 times. I take pictures of all of the quotes up on the walls and everything because they're so profound, and quotes are always cherry picked, but they are so important to me. They're so important to get me thinking. They're so important to what I feel like my path is, in this life, on this earth. And if there is something happening, we've got vendors, we've got artists out there, they need to be supported because that money goes back into the community, and that support comes back out to the community. So if you see an independent artist, if somebody's having a recital, nothing's better than looking out there and seeing your people. Honey, people were singing along during Jubilee. It was amazing. The Malcolm X performances were the most sold out performances Seattle Opera's had in a long time. People want to see us. They want our art, and they will show up for it. So put it out there for them. All right.
Thank you. Well, that's great. So let's stay on the side. Thank you. Let's stay on the side of Black excellence. If I'll just take that. Thank you for that gift. And building community and Black excellence. Let's put those together. And so, Sharia, as you work in spaces of healing and justice and care and love and all of the things, how do you center Black excellence and joy and justice?
I think just echoing a little bit of what you had shared, that it can be such a balancing act, but I feel bad for people who don't get to participate in my culture, in my communities. Like, man, you're missing out, because there's just so much beauty, so much beauty, so many things to learn. And so that's why I was talking about even like the day-to-day, your everyday lives and how you show up. Like, if you get an opportunity to be welcomed into a space of difference, like, take it and just show up and listen and participate, like, humble yourself enough to experience something different, because this white supremacist setup that we're in is such a fallacy. It's so faulty. But if you buy into it, then you just, you don't know what you're missing out on. And, my heart goes out to you, kind of thing, because we are not just our trauma. That's so often what you hear about, but man, there's things that are happening every day throughout the year, that we get to come together and celebrate with each other and just, be with one another, sharing culture. We're talking about music, all that, like, there's so much richness too. And I hope that never gets lost, in the days ahead that we have to deal with, because things are about to get crazy and it's gonna be a fight. I've been watching a lot of Star Wars lately, so this political environment like really is resonating, with the resistance. And, just thinking about how are people going to stand up? How are we going to show up in this moment? How are we going to rise to the occasion, even if it's a minority at this point? It's going to be interesting, to see. But I was just thinking about, there's two sides of that. So we do have this balance, because I've been thinking about like this word acknowledgement and recognition has just been on my mind too. And, that was a beautiful land acknowledgement that we got to hear before we started today. Really beautiful, well written. And I think about the ways, it's almost like Black excellence and joy looks different in the proper context of acknowledgement of our history, if that makes sense. Like without the full acknowledgement and recognition, we can't understand the fullness of what it means to celebrate together today. I think about the Equal Justice Initiative, and the lynching memorial that went up in recent years. And that first attempt to physically acknowledge what the lynchings that took place in this country. I mean, they go around and collect soil from the places that they were able to identify historically and save that and put a name and put a date and have a memorial. We're so against that in this country, and obviously that's not working for us. We have to acknowledge our history and acknowledge our present, and that gives us a totally different context. When I think about, these encampments, and how many of my relatives are out there, how undistributed, Native people are out here in these encampments in our community, like, let's acknowledge some stuff first, acknowledge our history as to how we got to where we are, and sit with that discomfort long enough so that when we see our singers out here today and our young people reclaiming their culture, and we see gatherings of Black people in Bellingham with our history, it looks different. But we don't want to do that uncomfortable work of, going back and really looking at stuff for what it is. But it makes the present so much more profound, when we put it in proper context. So I hope I'm saying that right. I hope it's making sense the way I'm, okay. But, that's how I've been seeing, Black joy, Black excellence, and just these, where we're at collectively, because it's complex. There's so many different, it's not black and white. There's all different colors in between, and, but that's also like the fullness of our society, of our communities, and that's such a place that I would rather be, personally, is in that colorful middle somewhere. So,
all right, thank you. We do have to come close to our close. Yeah, give that a round of applause. Thank you. There's a lot that I'm holding that I'm gonna try to decompress and think about as well. So we could do this for, as you can see, I mean, we can get some lunch and just continue this. And however, we do have a program and we have to follow. So unfortunately, we do have to come to our close. What I'll ask, though, is from Ian, from Miriam, and from Bryson, just to drop one last gem. What does Black excellence and community mean to you? And how can we take that outside with us? If you could leave us with a sentence or two of what that means to you. And I'm sorry, we can't continue.
Okay, I'll start. There's so much I want to say, and so I'll try to keep it short. Black joy and Black excellence to me, first of all, I think.
Say whatever you want.
Oh, sorry, y'all. To me, it looked like being in the Pacific Northwest, seeing another Black person, and us just acknowledging each other. Like we're looking at each other, just nod, we say hi, and we talk like we know each other. I've had friends and my partner is somewhere here who's like, do you know them? And I'm like, no, but we know each other. Like, that's there's such an acknowledgement. And it's around the world for Black folks. There's like a kinship there. And I would say seek that with your own communities. Ask yourselves, how come maybe that's not something you're used to? Maybe that's not something you've seen in your own communities, racially speaking. Ask yourselves, are we pausing? Are we seeing each other? Are we acknowledging each other? Are we caring for each other? And then what are we doing when things feel like, when things get really, and that very, everything just feels like despair. What are you doing? Where are you starting? So seek that.
Thank you.
To me, Black joy and Black excellence looks like what I see on the stage right now. It is us coming together. It is actually, there's something I do want to kind of share. It turns out that something that is a trait. If any of us were to suck our teeth at our parents, what would happen? I only say that because that is a trait that I recently found out is shared among African diaspora. Doesn't matter where you are in the world, if you suck your teeth at your parents, it is. I end my comment here. Oh, sorry.
Your teeth is.
Yeah.
We might not have teeth after that.
To me, Black excellence is just like Black people being aware of their history and what they can change from that. And I feel like it's important, like from Dr. King's legacy, that we change or like continue what he has started and keep moving forward from that. And yeah.
Thank you. All right, this was a gift, and I wish we can go longer. Please give our panelists a round of applause for the time that they've given. And what I would offer, I'd offer out, since obviously we love to have time for questions and all of that, you'll see them here. So those are the opportunities to ask those questions and to open up those solidarities that we can build in Bellingham. So, and beyond. Finish.
Hello? Okay. So I wanted to say, I know that, we're about to enter a really dark time. If you are at all interested in what racial equity looks like in this county, the Whatcom Racial Equity Commission is exactly the place you should look to. I'll have more information for you out there.
Thank you all. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Oh, you still got something to say?
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, you got it.
Okay. First of all, wow. I just wanted to say thank y'all so much for your time here, talking about all the insight of how to unite our community. I don't know about y'all, but I definitely took away a lot of golden nuggets that I wrote myself. Number one, to forge your own path, that we are more than our trauma, that comfort brings complacency, and to look around you and see who you can help today. I think that's not just a resolution for me. That's a life goal, every day I could look at. To build community and getting together which is doing something that you're passionate about, which is, I don't know if you guys know this, but I have a podcast that I started while I was going to Western called The Black Experience, where I give voice to, Black individuals living here in Whatcom County and the Pacific Northwest. So that's something I'm passionate about that I'll continue to do. So I love that part. So I want to thank y'all so much. Can we give another round of applause for them, please? Thank you. I do wish the conversation could continue, for real. This could go on for long. But to close us out and direct us into the community service component of today, I would like to welcome up the lead coordinators for today's event. So without further ado, y'all, please join me in welcoming to the stage Nia Gibson, Deborah Bineza, and Lori Melton.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Lori Melton, and I work for the Bellingham School District. I am also one of the committee coordinators for planning the committee for this event. And before I hand the mic over to Nia, I wanted to and before we usher you all into service, I wanted to take a moment to let you all know about another community event taking place this Monday, January 20th. Bellingham Community Co-op will be celebrating their 25th MLK Day celebration. This event will take place at the Bellingham Unitarian Fellowship. They have a wonderful program prepared, and you can find more information on our website at www.edu/MLK. We hope you all will continue to honor the legacy of Dr. King and hold close the words of former Congressman John Lewis, that MLK is a day on it's not just a day off, it's a day on, actually. And engaging in the community is really important. So thank you again, and for further ado, Nia.
Hello. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you all so much for being here. I'd love for us to give another round of applause to our panelists. That was such a powerful, powerful panel. And to think back to what Ian said, I knew I became an adult when I started sucking my teeth at younger people. So thank you, Ian, for bringing that space to connection for us all. So we are so glad you all were able to join us this morning. I would like to take a moment to thank a few people that made today possible. First, I would like to thank our wonderful MCs, Ermias, Isaac, and Balin. Thank you so much. Well, thank you. I would also like to thank our panelists and wonderful moderators. Thank you all again for such powerful words for our community today. I'd like to thank Keith and the staff here at Bellingham High School who have been amazing hosts. We are so grateful to your team. And I'd like to thank our volunteers for their hard work. So all of the tables and linens and everything you saw set up out there, those were our wonderful volunteers. I'd like to also thank Tony Blackwell, our artist, for the beautiful design. So all of the posters and marketing materials, Tony put in hard work to create that for us. Tony, if you're here, can you please stand to be recognized? Wonderful. I would like to extend gratitude to the Chesquin Singers and to our ASL interpreter provided by Hand Dancers. And last but definitely not least, I would like to thank the wonderful members of the Community Consortium for Cultural Recognition for the countless hours they have spent planning today's events. I'm so proud and honored to be a member of this organization, and the Fridays we've spent organizing have been my favorite Fridays. So we have representatives here from Western Washington University, Bellingham Public Schools, the City of Bellingham, Bellingham Technical College, Whatcom Community College, Northwest Indian College, Peace Health, Bellingham Public Library, and the Whatcom County Health and Community Services. Can our community members, our committee members, please stand so that the community can honor you for your hard work. Thank you. And I will turn it over to Nia to close us out today.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Nia Gibson. I use she, her pronouns, and I have the honor and the privilege of serving as the Black Student Retention Specialist at Western Washington University. And I am the last of the coordinators for our MLK Day committee. This has truly been an honor just to serve with these two wonderful humans here in our amazing committee. This is my third year actually being on this committee, and I just love that we get to bring the community together for such a sacred time. And so thank you all for being here as well. I will not stand before you long because I do not want to stand in the way of you in service, but I do just want to close us out with a few things. I am, again, just really grateful that, you all made this an intergenerational component today, just to see multiple generations present, from the little babies that have been running around to those who are young at heart. It has just been really wonderful that you all have been able to come together and really just focus on what community means and what it is that it means to be united as a community. One goal of our committee was to ensure that every aspect of this event was intergenerational, because we can't create a better future if we don't honor our past and create a seat for everyone, young and young at heart, at the table. It is my hope that you all really sit with what was shared today and apply it to how you show up for this community. This is your community. I know what E.B. Dooney said about not having trauma as your story really resonated with me, and I will take with me today to make sure that I am creating spaces of joy for our community. It is imperative that we remain united and work together to overcome challenges that may arise, for we are stronger together than we are divided. As Dr. King once said, darkness cannot drive out darkness, only light can do that. Hate cannot drive out hate, only love can do that. So if we continue to center justice, freedom, and most importantly, love, we will be able to create a better tomorrow for generations to come. With that, I welcome you all to join us for community service in the Commons, and please do not forget to engage with our vendors. We have quite a few out here today. We have Ferry O'Neill Scents, the Wacom Dispute Commission, Moe's Parlor, Blessed Hands Hair Studio, the Black Student Coalition, WW Athletics with free tickets to our Black History Month basketball game, and the Wacom Racial Equity Commission. So without further ado, I will dismiss you all to service, and thank you again so much for being here.